Well, let's start by giving credit where credit is due. This is to Crepo. Congratulations on being the only one who correctly predicted the Lemondogs to win.
Thank
You're
you.
still tied
Thank
for
you.
last. Let's talk a little bit about the game. Do you want to start, kick us off with some thoughts?
At least Zed didn't make it through pick and ban phase, so that's interesting. Ariel was open surprisingly long.
I mean, it wasn't that surprising. They had the Fizz
Yeah, because they had the
stored
Fizz.
up.
Okay, surprisingly for the tournament so far, Ari made it a little longer than usual. Definitely was Fizz counter was open, so TSM must have known that that would have happened. Nukedog played a little more reserved on its Fizz. Still aggressive, but not as really, let's go past the tower to get the summoners. I actually talked to Nukedog. If people remember that that little throw people used to call it, why he went in so deep, it was basically him saying, well, I wanted to get the guy's summoners, but my team somehow got baited into it. So that just tells you how, how much Nukedog just doesn't care. He just
how brave he is.
How brave, yes. He plays without any remorse, without any regrets. He just goes in and sees what happens.
Yeah, and this game just showed very uncharacteristic game of TSM, where Xpecial missed a lot of crucial crescendos, just kept whiffing them, and Dyrus, he got camped again, and he fell prey to it again. I would expect for him to have learned from the past few games.
I mean, he didn't so much get camped as they overcommitted to that chase around the jungle there with their... I mean, he did get camped eventually, but that was caused by an overcommitment on TSM's part and an aggressive use of Flash that didn't pan out for them.
And I don't want to bash on him too hard, but I didn't really like the early Andres rush. I felt like once he was a little bit struggling, he should have just got his double Magic Pen items and then went to the little more tanky build, so he could at least do some peeling and then work toward our allies.
Yeah, and I think coming into the team fights in general as well, I didn't see the TSM synergy. As soon as they had locked in Sona and Jarvan, I'm like, oh, they're setting up for Rumble, of course, because they have so much crowd control and location controls that you'll sit in the Equalizer. And I think in every single fight I saw, Equalizer led the charge and missed most of the champions. Then like Crescendo comes out later or the Cataclysm comes out later. And none of that TSM team fighting that I expect to see from them came out at all in this game.
One of the things that I want to highlight, if we step back and look at the macro game, is that, first of all, Dyrus struggled again. It was one of the things that, Lemondogs, they put some concerted effort into shutting him down. On top of that, it was a slower-paced game than what we've been seeing. And slower-paced game plays into Lemondogs' play style. It's something they're comfortable with. They like getting to the mid and the late game. And time again, we see Nukedog finding picks before objectives happen. And I think Jat actually said during one of the fights, he's like, well, that was like really clean, easy objectives because Nukedog just removed that dude from the map, and there was not enough defense from TSM.
Yeah, and TSM really couldn't afford to let Fizz get into like the mid-late game where he's incredibly strong with his Zonias, and he gets enough CDR so that his Playful Trickster's always up. And the difference between TSM and Fnatic, I've seen the biggest difference is that when TSM gets behind, they like to turtle, they don't want to make the plays, they don't want to take any more risks to put them more behind. But Fnatic is willing to take those risks and actually turn the game around.
I actually want to give props to Dexter as well. He played a really good Elise. He actually went for a really tanky build with Spirit of the Ancient Golem and Locket of the Iron Solari. And then even after that, he only started building his double Magic Pen. So he really didn't care about any damage. He was peel, crowd control, which was enough. As long as he stuck in there long enough, he actually baited a lot of charms and dodged them with Repel. And then every time, Fizz would just come in and clean house.
Yeah, and I think just to give some credit to TSM, though, their bottom lane had a pretty good showing overall. They actually got the first kill on lane in a heads-up 2v2. And then Wild Turtle in general went like 4-1-3 at one point in that game. So
he ended the game with 4-2-2.
Yeah, so okay, so he's 4-1-2 at that one point. Lost, of course, died in the very last team fight there. But yeah, being on the losing team against Assassins, having an Elise, a Rekt, and a Fizz all coming at your throat, and then surviving all those and putting out kills, I've got to give a lot of credit to Wild Turtle. He's had actually a really good run individually this entire World Championship.
He was one of the better players on TSM for this World Champions for sure.
So I want to take a step back and go all the way back to the beginning. I know we were talking about the picks and bans, and we've briefly touched on it, but I want to ask about the thought process when it comes to letting Assassins through, letting certain picks through, because I feel this matchup really exemplifies it. In game one, Lemondogs were on the red side. They allowed some bans to go through. We've seen Reggie picking up Zed, and Nukedog went, I'll play Ari. It's going to be, assassin versus an assassin, which, you could argue is a skill matchup, depending on how it goes. In this game, we've seen a similar situation where TSM, they banned out, they did ban out the Zed, then a Cannon and a Sona. Yeah,
Thresh.
that's right. Thresh, thank you. I'm going
Yeah.
And Thresh, but they left open Ari, knowing Nukedog is a Fizz player. So talk to me about, first of all, the decision to actually leave those champions open, and then if you agree or disagree with that mindset.
I think it was actually a bit of a misstep because even I could see coming into that they wanted to pick Rumble into that composition, and they saved Rumble for last, like as though it was some kind of counterpick, even with Renekton already showing, and that sort of opt-in by TSM already obvious. They showed the Ahri, they picked that for Reginald, and Reginald's a good Ahri. He's made pretty good plays in the champion, but I know we talked about Fizz being a pretty good counterpick to Ahri specifically and having a pretty good matchup there, which we saw throughout the mid-game. And so the fact that TSM kind of expected Ahri Fizz to happen, but didn't like wait to like force Lemondogs to pick a champion first and was like, yeah, we'll just give you the counterpick and then show Rumble anyway. It was really weird the last 3 picks coming out for TSM.
Well, I think they were kind of stuck there because we thought if we talk about Zed, Ken, and Thresh when you're on red side, I mean, you can leave one of those picks up for them to first pick, or you leave both of them up and get a champion that Reginald's comfortable on. So if you say ban Fizz, because Reginald may not be as strong on that champion, then they're going to first pick Ahri. You know,
Sure.
If you leave both up, then you say, well, maybe there's a chance Reggie can outplay Ahri, or do you ban them both and just ban something like Zed, Ahri, Fizz? So it's a little, they must have been very concerned. Clearly we're very concerned about Thresh and Kennen in that situation. So I think there's just a lot of threats on Lemondogs.
But why not just have Reggie play a champion who's not going to get categorically countered in a 1v1 matchup where Nuke Duck straight up beats him? They know the Fizz is coming out. Reggie's been playing the game for 4 years. Pick a different champion.
He may have been confident from the last game that they played, in
right.
which Reggie had a very strong showing against Nuke Duck and his ability to outplay him. I don't know.
Let's get some quick final thoughts from Doublelift and Crepo.
Well, I think TSM's strategy coming into these picks and bans, they first picked Ezreal Sona. That means they say, okay, our bot lane's good enough to handle itself. We need to give our soul lanes counter picks. That's what happens when you first pick your dual lane. You say, I'm going to let my dual lane get counter picked, but we're going to counter pick your soul lanes. And it actually ended up working in reverse where both soul lanes, even though they had the opportunity to counter pick, they lost lane, which is just a big misstep by TSM.
Anything to add to that, Crepo?
Yeah, sometimes limited champion pools just don't do you well. Although Ahri can still beat a Fizz in a matchup, maybe he was just really confident in his ability to beat the Fizz, and maybe he expected maybe more jungle help. They did fall behind a little bit early after a jungle skirmish. You can never know until you play the game.
Yeah, very true. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for TS in this game. They will be playing Gaming Gear a little bit later today, but let's check out how that matchup affects the Group A standings. OMG SKT still sitting at the top of the table. They have not played any of their games left today. Lemondogs sitting at 3-4